at getting Graham to come here today, and I've been a really strong figure in enabling us to get this event rolling. I also want to say thank you to everybody who actually has turned up today. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has turned up. Obviously, it means a lot. Our society, this is probably our first major event of the year, or first major event of the last 2 years, even. Probably we could say that at least in Colwyn. So the fact that we've got people turning up is always a good thing, and therefore thank you on my behalf for turning up, because it means a lot. Right, so that's all the thank you, and that's all the good things out the way. Yeah. Don't be scared of me. Right. Secularism, and the talk for today about why the monarchy should be abolished. Let's begin by talking about secularism and what it actually is. I mean, as our society, the atheist, the humanistic, and the secularist part of it, it's like our own non-holy trinity, of the way that we see how the world should be. And secularism within that is a very big part of it. The reason why it is a big part is because without it, we don't have an application of what we are trying to achieve. Secularism is probably the easiest or the most functional way to allow people to believe what they want to believe, to live the way they wish to live, without hindering on anything else. So it's a beautiful concept in itself to think that there's freedom for and freedom from religion in that aspect. I mean, there's a quote from Voltaire who said that, you can believe whatever you want. I don't really care what you believe, but I will always fight for your right to hold what you believe. Something like that. In that aspect, it makes it very, very applicable to how society is running at the moment. So, for example, you look at how the census data in this country has shown the lack of religiousness within the population, or the current decrease in it, which is kind of a good thing to look into, see how we are becoming more so secular than what we were before. We're being less reliant on religion to be the backbone of what society is today. The other question is that society still holds on, still clinging on to that tradition. So we're really trying to bridge that gap. It's not atheism, and it's nowhere near it. And it's good when it kind of clings onto it. Maybe atheism does use secularism to a point. I don't believe that secularism means atheism as much as atheism means secularism, which is kind of interesting. The point is that it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really care about what people believe. We shouldn't really bother, we don't really care, we don't really mind, and we're happy to allow people to believe whatever or whatever so they would like to believe. At the end of the day, as long as it's not hindering on another person's life or another person's way of life or anything like that, or causing harm, so you can bring kind of a million examples into that, then why should we really be concerned about other people believe what they believe? So therefore we've got to kind of go that it isn't atheism, it's nothing like it. And that is why it obviously moves on to the next point of why it can be so applicable to society. The problem with secularism, or the problem with concepts in general, is that they always change. So, for example, we look at secularism, we have a secular society, and the first thing that comes to mind is France, probably. And you go, oh, they're really, really extreme on the way that they're targeting the the way they did in English there. One has to therefore question, how much so is that really implying on our lives? Is that really causing harm to the person? Surely we should all be free to wear what we wish to wear. I don't see a reason to ban anything. Obviously censoring something like that is not what we would want to do. And in a secular state or a secular society, which is kind of what this talk is going to be about, the last thing we want to do is start arguing this is what we should do, because we aren't in a position to do that. Democracy. Now this kind of furthers the point about what this talk is going to be about. We pride ourselves, this society prides itself on being very, very democratic. We love it. kind of, we raise the flagpole for it, and we are democracy, you know, we allow people to run this country on behalf of the general public, and we allow a general election just happening next year, we allow local elections, we allow people to have a say in what is actually happening within the political climate, and we pride ourselves on doing that, so we should in a westernised society. However, we also have to remind ourselves that our democracy is not full democracy, well, not full democracy, but we have to remind ourselves that the democracy that we have is very grassroots. So the democracy above the roots that we have right now is still embedded within traditionalistic principles. For example, the way that, obviously I'm going to bring the monarchy into this, so the way that the monarchy are established in this country, I mean, we have a head of, we have one figurehead, beautiful Elizabeth, or Lizzie, who is the head of state and the head of the Church of England. When you have somebody who's in that kind of power, and I say power, and ultimately you will tell me, this woman has no power whatsoever. This woman does nothing. She sits there, she's part of the throne, she's there to take pictures for, and she kind of, I don't know, she goes around the world saying that I'm part of the UK, and the monarch still holds the title, so what does she really do? The thing is though, it's basically like take that and fill it with internal writing, you already concentrate on your choosing, and that's the way history was. So, for example, that was the way the kings used to rule. It was their one-man rule of how this country should be run. You know, you have a king, you can say how things should be, and that particularly is the way they would be, and that's the way the winter bottle is. What's happened over the years is that it started to dilute. So the bottle that was full of winter started to dilute, and that's what we're left with now. The difference is, though, is that that amount of concentrate is still in that water bottle. So even though we have a society where we kind of believe that our monarch doesn't do much, she still does. She still has the right to veto, things that go through Parliament. She still has a hand in things like that. I mean, there's a list of a few things that have needed her influence, have needed her or his even, have needed their input into, have needed they vetoed some of them as well. For example, I think it was the civil partnership or the civil marriage law that was passed this year? No, it was passed this year. That was brought in 2006, but it was vetoed because it has something to do with them, So we have a system whereby the normal general public does believe that they don't really have influence over our political democratic system. Problem is that they do. So therefore the questions that probably will be asked today is how much influence do they have if they're allowed to have the things in as many pies as they like? How democratic is society in itself? If we are trying to create a society whereby we have people on behalf of the general public creating acts and laws and stuff on how society should be, but we're still held in this traditionalistic way of life of how it used to be and how their thoughts and biases and prejudices and discrimination, I guess, is still current within that system, then how will this society really progress in the way that it should do? How can we allow our society to go from A to J if we're still stuck in Greek? Those are the questions that should be asked of the monarchy and how they are. The other thing is that I'll bring on to this is the media attention or the nationalism and the patriotism also attached and associated to the monarchy. When you think of Britain, to be proud of Britain, the first thing that comes to mind, unfortunately, is the monarch, and it's what's his name, Prince Charles, and I think there's a new baby on the way now. So we'll be told over and over again that another offspring is on the way to populate this country, or another offspring that we need to basically pay for through taxes. Hallelujah. So just remember that when you're working solidly and just remember how your work is doing. The question isn't whether they have a child or whatever. The question is media attention towards that. The question is, why does our society believe that we need to hold or need to associate these people to this country? I mean, this country, the people that have occupied this country, past and present, have done so much. The developments within philosophy, science, the arts, culture, anything you can think of, we're basically doing really, really well. We are striding forward in that, and that should be, we should be proud of it. But no, we kind of hold on to this. Well, you think of this country, think of just a monarchy, well, kind of ruins that sentiment of how great this country or people that actually are here, actually are. So there's another thing to think of. And I am rambling, I do know that, because he should have been here by now. Yeah, because the next slide is grace, yeah, apparently. Anybody got any questions? I love this. Go, Brandon.
What do you make of the?
Thank you, brother. Yeah.
What?
That's fine.
What do you make of the point that the monarch for many individuals in this country is almost forms a part of their identity, and people. The same way we saw with Scotland, people want Scotland to be because it's part of their national identity. People don't want to get rid of monarch because they see it forms an integral part of what it means to be British, and obviously that forms in turn a part of their identity.
I mean, to be fair, if she wants to keep her title, and if the family want to keep their titles as well, I'm not exactly going to say no. She can still be a queen, they can still be princes, and they can still be princesses, I think. The argument isn't whether or not they should. The argument is that, yes, they have been. I guess that's the way that it works. That they're very influential in the lives of the public and maybe the general public and that. You can only see from the wedding of William and Kate of how mass public appeal was for that. You couldn't get away from it. Well, I did, I worked that day. The question therefore the point is therefore that it isn't about abolishing the monarchy, stripping them away, getting rid of them, putting them in a flat somewhere in London and leaving them to live the rest of their lives. The point isn't that. That point is very fickle. The point is that she can still live the way she wants to live, they can still live the way they want to live. Hopefully not at the taxpayer's expense, because that would be kind of nice and we don't have to keep paying for them. The other thing is that we don't have to, we want a society that can progress. In order to progress, the traditionalistic strains that we're still attached to need to start loosening up. And therefore we need to begin this discussion of if we want to be, granting this from a republic. So if, for example, republic is basically talking about how we want a democratic alternative to the monarchy. So when you have somebody who has such power, which is through hierarchical luck or chance, or whether they're born there, surely we should have control of who actually has that power, and it shouldn't just be from mother to son to probably daughter to son. So it's more of a fact of we don't want to get rid of them, ban them and put them into exile in Wales. But it is more of a we want to take more control over who has power in society. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh,
thanks.
That's alright. Anybody else want to talk? Go, Jezza.
Okay.
Here we go.
So the Queen's not have a stay. And every country needs a head of state. So if we abolish monarchy, who then becomes the head of state? And is it not bad if, like the US and like France, where we install a president instead of a monarch, it's not a bad thing to have a head of state who is split along party lines?
Who is?
Split along party lines.
Yeah. I don't know how. It feels weird because like, these are the questions you should be asking. Graham?
Oh, I will.
No. That's brilliant. Sorry about that. It's great. No, it's great. It's great. When you look at the monarch, they're not independent of the party that is in power as much as they should be or shouldn't be. For example, when you look at the way the way the system works, I mean, the whole diluted thing kind of comes into it. If the government passes something or wants something to occur, yes, I know there is a list of all these different things that they have said, no to or vetoed or extended or whatever. But that's probably what 3%, 4% of everything that they get on a weekly basis from the Prime Minister has a conversation with the Queen. That therefore presents the question that out of this probable 2 to 5%, the rest of the 95% that actually gets put forward is actually signed for and approved of. So really the question is that if you believe that the monarch is this kind of split between parties, independent person who can actually hold the government to account and question why they're doing whatever they're doing, surely by all the things that they actually do pass, you've got to question, well, they're not really doing a very good job at it in that way. So, for example, so therefore they kind of are that split between parties, they do kind of just go with it in most cases, really. Coming back to your question properly though, the thing is within this country, within this nation, we pride that democratic element of this is why these people are here. For example, we've got Cameron, we've got Clinton, less than the middle civil partnership, but we do have them because that's because they were voted for, kind of, the crux of that. But yeah, so we democratically elect these people to be representatives of ourselves. Surely not. We should therefore democratically elect somebody to be the head of state. Surely we should be able to have a say in who has that much power within society. The other question is that if we do democratically elect a person to sit on that pedestal, there has to be people that are independent for that to ensure that they do their job properly, to ensure they're not biased, to ensure they're not pulled to whichever political direction. Therefore, obviously, whenever meetings come along, there has to be independent bodies to ensure that they are regulated in the sense. The only thing we've got to make sure is that we don't become, we can learn from the mistakes or the way that other countries around, such as France, other secular societies that are kind of even more extreme than kind of would hope for. But the diversity that this country has, we wouldn't be able to allow that anyway.
Is there not an advantage to have a head of state who manages to successfully, I believe, distance itself from the diversity within the country? Whereas you've got, I'm going to have to reference the American system, it's massive democracy, you've got such political agendas which have sort of slipped in there. And you get cases such as the great Bush-Gore election, where obviously more people voted for Al Gore than they did George Bush, but look who sat on the throne. And reflecting that upon our own country, we could have ended up with President Gordon Brown not that long ago, and I wouldn't be happy with that. So my question is sort of, is there not an advantage to having someone distance themselves from political ideals and agendas?
Yeah.
With more of a comment rather than perhaps answering that previously, possibly it's more to do with the political system that we would use in replacements. So, for example, the type of system you're talking about, such as the United States and France, the president actually is part of the executive. They are the executive. They write bills that get passed through the elected chambers, etc. Whereas if you were looking at, say, a direct replacement for the monarchy here, we almost certainly retain the Westminster style of government. In other words, the president of Great Britain would would possibly be a figurehead type of person, whoever that individual was, he or she may be. But the power would still reside with the Prime Minister, the First Minister of the country, as it does at the moment, which would then be down to Parliament. Now, that type of system, the Westminster style, the elected president would probably have less power of direct influence than, for instance, the presidential styles of France and the United States. That's just a comment.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn this into a discussion because seeing as he's not here, we might as well go for it.
But I just don't understand why we're assuming the Queen is distant. There's a wild purpose on the screen of the movie that she's clearly biased. She clearly has political views and clearly expresses them.
But then it's in the Charles
Yeah.
biased. It doesn't happen to countries.
Yeah, and you know,
Sometimes.
I think there's a lot to be said for having an elected head of state that doesn't stand under doesn't stand under a particular party. They all have to stand as independent. Of course, they'll have political views. Of course, they may be a member of the Conservative or maybe a member of the Labour Party. But you can't, whether the head of state's elected or registered or whatever, they're going to have political views. You can't stop that. So I'd rather elect them and choose which of these views I'd have as my head of state.
And to some extent, would we not have some idea what their political views would be in advance, as opposed to hidden? At the moment, the monarchy is an apolitical person. She's not political, but clearly she is. She's part of the establishment, head of the establishment.
Of course.
The future king will be head of the establishment.
Comparing to a fully fledged republic where the candidates are all plucked from similar sections of society, the more prestigious, the more, they're almost born into that kind of role still. There's a huge element of it. And I think separating, saying a republic is more open to the people and a monarchy is more fixed in its sort of hereditary state. It's kind of blurring the lines of similarities. People that stand for government have vast monetary backings from people, and the people that ultimately stand for president have not come from poor backgrounds. It's hard to argue to say they represent the people at a lower level more so than a monarchy.
Yeah, I think an elected head of state could be non-partisan even if they came from a party background. If you look at the Speaker of the House of Commons, for example, they're always from a party, one of the political parties, but once they become Speaker, they no longer have party allegiance and they're supposed to be fair-handed, and generally are. So I don't see why an elected head of state couldn't be non-partisan in the same way.
I mean, there's also that question of, because the monarch at the moment is head of state, and she's also head of the Church of England. So there's also this question of, you've got one individual who's basically head of the state, she's head of the church as well. They're basically, and the way that you think of it is a bit of a crude example, but they're basically in bed together with her watching. It therefore brings the question of, if you had someone who was independent, reminded of the diversity and the ethnicity of this country and how great and vast it actually is, because it doesn't just stop at the Church of England. I mean, the amount and the differences that we have are beautiful and great. Surely that would be managed in a better way than it is at the moment. So surely having a head of state in a church would therefore be, well, surely that's just going to lead towards every other kind of faith or religion with background.
You could still end up with in God we trust with having currency though, even having that separation. On the back of my £10 note in my pocket is Charles Darwin. So you know,
How we end up having God we trust.
no, we know, but you know, distancing. The separation between the head of state and any particular religious culture, you're still going to have to, you're still going to have to embrace the majority religion of the country, I believe, in order to win votes, because that becomes your new agenda, is to win the votes to get to power.
The argument there wasn't eradicate religion. The argument there is having an individual who's just the head of the church, or primarily not like that. Also, with the thought of having like 26 bishops in the House of Lords, whatever, the privilege of that one faith within this country can therefore be questioned and further allow an opportunity for, I mean, this goes against side of it, but it therefore provides an opportunity for other faiths not to also have their 10 piece or not have their 10 piece. What I'm saying is that maybe, for example, having an independent individual would therefore change the way that system is at the moment. It would therefore look at and question the traditionalistic principles of how this country is run like that. And it might be as that change might be as powerful as something like the way Scotland's thing was at the moment. So that amount of kind of national curiosity and damn, we can change things up. Possibly having some independent mind do that. Any thoughts? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Just quickly go back to the point that the very valid and worried political about that kind of the presidential candidates, and I think easily say it that reason in this country as well, kind of they seem to come from the same crop of people. I think that is a real issue for democracy. But it's not so much I don't see the solution being, well, let's just keep it to one rich family and pass it along. I see the solution as being, okay, so let's get rid of monarchy, let's have an elected head of state, but let's also back that up with processes that tackle entrenchment policy, that tackle corruption politics, that widen it to all demographics as well. So it's kind of we wouldn't, and this ties into your point, Harry, that abolishing the monarchy isn't an end, it's a start, it's the beginning of something. It's a catalyst for changing and reinvigorating our democracy, which is something that we desperately need. Get rid of the monarchy, and then why not turn to the House of Lords? Why not look at voting reform, the electoral system? Why not make MPs more accountable? Let's start seeing it as the start of something rather than just, chopping on that.
It might be the beginning of tackling. There's a lot of discussion these days about political apathy. So possibly, as Bradley's just, I'd say, as you pointed out, it could well be the start of something beautiful. Anybody against that? I can argue against that.
I'm not convinced that monarchy is the anchor point for that. That it's not necessarily synonymous with the issues lying in our democracy, be it the backgrounds our politicians come from, be it the existence of the House of Lords. They don't think about the defence.
The thing they're less democratic monarchy is they are voted for when they have considerably more sway within the political system. Thus, I think the monarchy's got rid of. Monarchy's got rid of, and House of Lords surely should follow. Logically, if anything, it should go first.
But then that question is then is that it's like the whole thing of let's get rid of the king because we should have power and how society should be run. We got rid of the king. Still there. We haven't really changed anything, but it's still there. The question then is that let's say the monarchy is put to the side, like the way that we kind of spoke about earlier. The problem is that we shouldn't go, let's stop. It needs to continue. That snowball effect needs to carry on. The only way that snowball effect will carry on is through positive engagement.
The point I was making wasn't necessarily that the monarchy is causing political apathy. It's not that the monarchy is secretly, like the David like Elizabeth kind of thing. They're not like behind everything. But the point is rather that what I believe we'd see if we convince the British public to vote to get rid of the monarchy, what we'd see with that is the kind of effect we've seen with the Scottish independence movement. We'd see a whole range of things previously not debate suddenly enter the political lexicon. And I think that's what it would do. It's not that the monarchy is behind everything, but it's why not start with the least democratic institution we have? And I think that will open up huge swathes of debate that we just don't really have in this country.
Show political change can happen. But during these centuries of tradition, in like that, it could massively shuffle the system. But I'm not sure what the system can come up to that. I think that a massive change in political structure has not often resulted in good things necessarily in history.
Actually, it cost about 100 years ago.
Go on.
See, I think the point Michelle Bradley made, actually, I don't think that abolition of the monarchy should be an end in itself. It should start something else, and that there would be three places, I would say, in which we should actually start at. One, why is the Church of England the state religion? It shouldn't be the state religion. Pass the control to the General Synod and just let it get on with itself. The second should be, yes, get rid of the monarchy as the head of the state, whether you want them to be funded by the British Tourism and Holiday Board afterwards, and that's a very debate. And the third thing is, let's have a written constitution in this country. I mean, why is it we're one of the only countries in the world which has no written constitution? I mean, one moment you hear the Conservatives say, well, it needs to flexible, we can adapt quickly to new needs. Now, we hear in this English devolution debate, well, you shouldn't change it now, they don't know what they want. So what we should do is we should have a written constitution, maybe not too dissimilar from the United States, and that would give the relationship between the citizen and the state and make it very clear. I forgot what I was going to say afterwards, but it may come back to me. That's just a point now.
Yeah,
Glad the Church of England came up as a talking point. Was it not brought about by monarchy wanting to detach from sort of the papal rule of Rome at the time, offered to us as a solution? Now, I'm on very thin ice saying something that happened 400 years ago is new age and bringing us forward into the future, but it was a damn good attempt at it. I think it brought about a lot of benefits and, of course, a lot of strife. Of course, a lot of strife. But
give you credit for that, actually. I definitely give you credit. I mean, it was an attempt at making something slightly better than the Catholic Church. I mean, which even throughout the Counter-Reformation, was actually quite a nasty little piece of work. So, I mean, if you consider the Catholic Church as the longest-running institution in human history, yes, it's quite young in comparison to, but you don't have to confine ourselves to becoming a Catholic